I shouldn't be telling you this, because the place I'm about to describe still exists. And if you're listening to this while the lights are off, you might regret it. Some houses don't just hold memories, they hold onto the people who never left. You've probably walked past an abandoned place before. Maybe a rotting shack at the edge of town, or a boarded up house with broken windows. Most people turn away, pretend it's not there. But one house in my hometown was impossible to ignore. It wasn't just abandoned. It was waiting. Story 1. I grew up in a small town tucked between miles of forest and endless cornfields. Quiet, ordinary, the kind of place where nothing exciting ever happens. Except for that house. Everyone knew about it. Everyone whispered about it. The old Victorian mansion that sat at the far edge of Hollow Creek Road. Its paint had peeled into gray strips, its shutters dangled by rusted hinges, and the roof sagged like the house itself was tired of standing. But what made it worse wasn't how it looked, it was how it felt. You couldn't drive past it without glancing at that upstairs window. The one that seemed to follow you. Some swore they saw movement behind the glass, even though the place had been empty for decades. The legends were endless. Some said the last family who lived there had vanished overnight, leaving dinner plates still on the table. Others swore that children who wandered too close heard their names whispered from the yard. But the most terrifying story was about the portraits. According to town gossip, inside that house were dozens of paintings on the walls. Faces of strangers. Men, women, children. And if you looked long enough, you'd notice their eyes weren't painted at all. They were real. Preserved. Watching. Of course, when I was younger, I thought it was all just a story. Every small town has its boogeyman house. Until the night I went inside. It started with a storm. The kind of storm that shakes your walls, rattles your windows, makes you wonder if the sky itself might split open. I was 17, restless, stupid. My friends and I had been telling ghost stories at an old diner when someone brought up the house. The usual banter started: who would go in, who would chicken out, who would prove they weren't afraid. And that's when it happened. All eyes turned to me. "You're not scared, right?" they said. "Bet you won't last 10 minutes inside." And like an idiot, I agreed. I thought I'd walk in, take a quick look around, maybe grab something as proof, and walk out a legend. But legends are dangerous things. They exist for a reason. By the time I reached the house, the storm was raging. Rain slammed the ground like nails. Thunder shook the trees until their branches clawed the sky. The iron gate screeched when I pushed it open. Rust flaked off like dead skin. The yard was overgrown, grass waist high, tangled with weeds that seemed to grasp at my ankles. And then I saw it. The front door. It wasn't closed, it was slightly ajar, like the house had been expecting me. I hesitated, my flashlight beam trembling as I raised it. The storm behind me roared, but the silence inside that door was worse. Step by step, I crossed the porch. Each board groaned under my weight. My hand reached out, but before I could touch the knob, the door drifted wider on its own. And I swear to you, what I felt wasn't a draft. It was an invitation. The smell hit me first. Damp, mold, dust, and something else. Something sour, like rotting meat that had lingered for years. My flashlight cut across the hallway. Wallpaper peeled in strips, sagging like torn skin. The floor was warped with water damage. But it wasn't the decay that froze me. It was the walls. Portraits. Dozens of them. Men in old suits, women in faded dresses, children clutching toys. Every face was pale, stiff, locked in expressions that didn't look painted at all. The detail was too perfect, the glisten of an eye, the faint curve of a lip. I leaned closer to one of the frames. My breath fogged the glass. And that's when I realized the truth. The eyes weren't brush strokes. They were real. Glossy. Preserved. Watching me. I stumbled back, my heart pounding. My beam slid to another painting, a little boy with dark curls. His mouth was twisted like he'd been frozen mid-screen. His pupils glistened wetly, catching the light like marbles. And then, I heard it. A whisper. At first, I thought it was the storm leaking through the walls. But no. It was inside the house. It said my name. I spun, my light catching the far end of the hallway. And there he was. A man. Or what used to be one. He was tall, gaunt, his skin stretched too tightly over his bones. His face was pale, almost translucent, veins dark beneath the surface. His lips moved, but the whisper didn't come from him, it came from the walls, the ceiling, the air itself. He raised a hand, long fingers trembling, and pointed behind me. The door behind me creaked open. My flashlight shook as I turned. Inside was a room filled with more portraits. Hundreds. And in the center of the floor stood an empty frame. My stomach dropped when I saw the plaque beneath it. It had my name on it. I froze. The pale man tilted his head, and for the first time, his lips curved into the faintest smile. The light flickered. The door slammed shut. And I realized the house hadn't just been waiting for anyone. It had been waiting for me. I should be left the moment I saw those portraits. I should be turned, run through the storm, and never looked back. But fear doesn't work like that. When you're inside a place like this, you don't feel like you can leave. You feel like the house itself is holding you. The door slammed shut behind me, leaving me trapped in that room with the empty frame. My name etched into the plaque. The pale man smiling at me from the shadows. My body jolted with panic, adrenaline surging like fire in my veins. I lunged at the door, clawing at the knob, slamming my shoulder into the wood. It didn't budge. The air grew heavier, thicker, pressing down on my chest until every breath felt like drowning. The portraits around me seemed to lean closer. Eyes glistening. Mouths almost shifting. I swear I saw the boy with the curls twitch. Just a tiny movement. Like he was trying to scream again. The pale man took one step forward. His bare feet left damp, black stains on the floorboards. The whispers grew louder. They weren't just saying my name anymore. They were chanting it. I lost control. I rammed the door again and again until... crack. It burst open, throwing me back into the hallway. I didn't look back. I ran. My flashlight beam swung wildly, catching glimpses of more portraits, endless faces. Some familiar, some not. And then one that nearly made me collapse. It was me. Not the empty frame anymore. But a portrait. My face. My wide eyes, my mouth open mid-breath. The paint or whatever it was looked wet, still fresh. The walls groaned. The pale man's whisper echoed behind me. Stick. I bolted through the hall, down the stairs, through the yawning front door, and out into the storm. The rain pounded my skin, cold and sharp. The house loomed behind me, its windows glowing faintly like eyes in the dark. I didn't stop running until I was home. I slammed the door of my room shut, locked it, and collapsed on the floor, gasping for air. My clothes were soaked, my shoes caked with mud, but I didn't care. I was alive. Or at least, I thought I was. That night, I left every light in my room on. My flashlight sat beside me like a weapon. I tried to convince myself it had all been a dream, a storm-fueled nightmare. But then, around 3 a.m., I woke up to a sound. A whisper. Not outside. Not in the hallway. Inside my room. At first, I thought it was the wind. But then I heard it again, closer, clearer. My name. I snapped my head toward the mirror across from my bed. And my stomach dropped. In the reflection, I wasn't alone. Behind me stood the pale man. His hand was reaching for my shoulder, his face bent toward my ear. But when I spun around, the room was empty. I didn't sleep that night. For the next few days, I tried to move on. Pretend nothing had happened. But the house wouldn't let me. Wherever I went, I felt watched. At school, in the diner, even walking down the street, shadows clung too long, mirrors played tricks, whispers echoed faintly in the hum of electricity. The worst was my phone. One morning, I opened the gallery to find a new picture. I hadn't taken it. It was me. Asleep in my bed. And in the corner of the photo, the pale man, smiling. I deleted it instantly. But the next morning, there was another one. A different angle. A different smile. I stopped sleeping. When I did drift off, the house invaded my dreams. Always the same me standing in the hallway, surrounded by portraits. But in each dream, there were more of them, faces I didn't recognize at first. Until I realized, they were people I knew. My friends. My parents. Even people I'd passed in town. Their eyes glistened with terror. Their mouths twisted in silent screams. And every dream ended the same way, with the empty frame, waiting for me. One night, the dream went further. I saw myself inside the frame. My chest tight, my breath frozen, my body unable to move. My eyes darted back and forth, but I couldn't scream. Couldn't cry. Couldn't escape. The house was showing me my future. I told myself I'd never go back. That stepping into that house once had been enough to ruin me forever. But the truth, the house wouldn't stop calling. It wasn't just whispers. It was a pull. Like invisible strings tugging at me whenever I walked near Hollow Creek Road. Like something inside me had been marked. One night, I drove past the edge of town. I told myself it was by accident, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. My hands turned the wheel on their own. My foot pressed the gas, guiding me back. When I reached the gate, it wasn't locked anymore. It hung wide open, waiting. And this time, I didn't hesitate. I stepped inside. The moment I crossed the threshold, I knew something was different. The smell was stronger, rot, mildew, something metallic. The wallpaper had peeled further, sagging in strips like flesh. The portraits, there were more of them. Twice as many as before. And this time, the eyes followed me. I could feel them tracking me as I moved, dozens of stares pouring into my back. The pale man appeared sooner, standing at the top of the staircase, head cocked at an unnatural angle. His whisper wasn't a name this time. It was a sentence. Welcome back. I should have never gone back. But the house wanted me, and some doors, once opened, never close. The door swung shut behind me with a slam that rattled the floorboards. I reached for the handle but it was gone. Just smooth wall where the door had been. I turned. The hallway stretched far longer than before, the portraits multiplying endlessly down the walls. Each frame crooked, each face pale and terrified. My chest tightened. It wasn't just the house anymore, it was alive. The pale man stepped slowly down the staircase. His joints bent wrong, his feet silent on the warped wood. With every step he took, the portraits shivered on the walls, as though trembling in fear of him too. I backed away. But wherever I stepped, the house shifted. Doors vanished. Stairs stretched higher. Windows looked out into nothing but black. I wasn't just inside the house. The house was inside me. I ran. My flashlight beam cut through the dark, bouncing off a maze of corridors. Every turn led to more doors, more portraits, more stairs. And then I froze. I saw my mother's face. It was her portrait, hanging crooked in a gilded frame. Her eyes wet, her lips slightly parted like she was about to beg for help. But her chest wasn't rising. She wasn't alive. I screamed, stumbling backward, my light swept across the walls, faces of people I knew. My best friend. My teacher. Strangers from town. Even the man who owned the diner. Every one of them trapped. Every one of them preserved in silence. And then I realized the truth. The portraits weren't warnings. They were trophies. The whispers rose again, louder than ever, overlapping voices filling the air. Thousands of them. Some begged, some cried, some screamed. I dropped to my knees, covering my ears, but it didn't help. The sound was inside my skull. My vision blurred. The pale man appeared again, closer now, crouched only a few feet away. His face loomed near mine, his skin paper thin, his teeth gray and crumbling. And then I understood. The whispers weren't coming from him. They were coming from the portraits. Every face, every eye, every soul, still alive inside the frame. And the empty frame was waiting to join them. I tried to speak, tried to beg, but no sound came out. My throat burned, my chest heaved, and the pale man simply tilted his head. He raised one long finger and pointed to the ceiling. I looked up and saw hundreds more portraits nailed to the rafters, swaying slightly as though hung from invisible strings. My heart dropped when I saw one of them move. A mouth twitched. An eye blinked. They weren't dead. They were trapped. The pale man's whisper finally filled my ears directly. A voice cold and sharp like broken glass. You belong here. I stumbled backward, but the floor shifted beneath me, tilting like a sinking ship. I slid down the warped boards, crashing into another room. And there it was. The empty frame. Still waiting. The frame stood taller now, its edges twisting like metal heated in a fire. The plaque with my name gleamed in the dim light. My reflection appeared inside the glass. Except it wasn't a reflection. It was me. But frozen. Mouth open. Eyes wide. Already trapped. The pale man stepped closer. His hand stretched out, reaching for my shoulder. His touch was icy, burning through my skin. My limbs locked, my breath caught. I felt myself being pulled toward the frame. The whispers grew deafening, screaming, chanting, demanding. Stick. 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 I fought. I don't know how I screamed, shoved, tore myself free from his grip. My body crashed into the frame, knocking it to the floor. The glass shattered, shards spraying across the rotten wood. And the house screamed. Every portrait shook violently, faces twisting in agony, eyes rolling, mouths finally opening to release a sound so horrible it felt like the earth itself was crying. I ran. Blind. Desperate. The halls twisted, doors shifted, staircases bent, but somehow, I found the front. The door was there again. I burst through it. And suddenly, I was outside. The rain had stopped. The storm was gone. The night was eerily quiet. I collapsed on the wet grass, gasping, staring at the house. Its windows were dark now. Silent. Still. Had I escaped, I forced myself up and stumbled home. My body ached, my skin burned where the pale man had touched me. But I was alive. Or so I thought. That night, when I finally closed my eyes, I dreamed again. I stood in the hallway, portraits on every wall. But this time, there was no empty frame. Because I was already inside it. My reflection blinked at me from behind the glass. My mouth opened in a silent scream. My body pressed against the inside of the portrait. And when I woke up, I ran to the mirror. And there he was. The pale man. Standing behind me. Smiling. So tell me, what would you do if you found your name on a frame inside a house no one should enter? Would you run, or would you accept that some places don't just wait for you? They keep you. If you made it to the end, you're braver than most. Subscribe for more terrifying stories, and remember, the next time you walk past an abandoned house, don't look too closely at the windows. Because it might already be looking back. Story 2. They say being home alone is peaceful. For me, it was the night I learned peace can vanish with a single sound. A knock at the door. And it never stopped. It was late on a Friday night. My parents had left town for the weekend, and the house was mine. I was 17, and honestly, I enjoyed the silence. No one shouting, no clatter of dishes, no TV noise. Just me, the hum of the refrigerator, and the soft patter of rain beginning against the windows. I made popcorn, curled into the couch, and scrolled through endless horror movies. It felt ironic, watching scary films while I was alone, but I laughed it off. The lights were low, the storm outside steady but calm. And then knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks at the front door. I froze. It was almost midnight. No one should be here. I muted the TV and held my breath. The house felt suddenly wrong. Even the rain seemed to pause between drops. I crept to the door and pressed my eye to the peephole. Empty. No shadow. No figure. Just the wet streetlight glow on the slick pavement. I exhaled nervously and turned back to the couch. Knock. 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 Louder this time. Clear. Intentional. My chest tightened. I checked the peephole again. Nothing. The porch was bare. I backed away, grabbed my phone, thumb hovering over my parents' number. But what would I say that someone was knocking but wasn't he there? They'd laugh, call me paranoid. And then the sound came again. Not from the front door this time. From the back. 3 slow knocks against the sliding glass door. I froze, staring at the swaying curtains. A faint breeze from the vent moved the fabric, but beyond it, I felt something. A presence. I crept forward, each step careful, heart racing. I pulled the curtain aside. Nothing. Just my rain-soaked backyard. The oak tree dripping steadily, the fence glistening. I let out a shaky breath. And then... knock. The glass rattled right in front of me. But no one stood there. I stumbled back, nearly dropping my phone. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't a delivery. Someone was playing with me. I slammed the curtain shut, locked the door, and ran upstairs. My room felt like the only safe place. I locked it, turned off the lights, and crawled into bed with my phone clenched in my fist. Minutes passed. Silence. Maybe it was over. Maybe my imagination was twisting shadows into fears. Knock. From my bedroom door. I screamed, leapt out of bed, pressed against the wall, staring at the knob. It didn't turn. The wood didn't rattle. Just one single knock. Then quiet. 5 minutes. 10. My throat dry, chest aching. Then another knock. Slow. Calm. Certain. Someone was inside. I checked my phone. The screen was black. Not out of battery. Dead. Refusing to power on. And then I heard it. Breathing. Not mine. Not from behind the door. Behind me. I spun, nothing but shadows stretching wrong across the floor, the faint glow of the streetlight outside making them writhe. The knocking spread. From the closet. From the walls. From the ceiling. Everywhere at once. A dozen fists, circling me, trapping me. I clutched my blanket like it could protect me. Tears stung. I screamed, "What do you want?" The knocking stopped. Silence. A minute passed. Then 2. My body trembled. Relief trickled in. And then a whisper, warm against my ear, "We're already inside. The rest of the night is broken fragments." I woke at dawn on the floor, weak, my phone glowing like normal. Every door in the house locked. Windows shut. No sign of forced entry. But at the front door, just below the peephole, words were carved into the wood. 3 shallow letters burned into my memory, "See you tonight." And that night, as I sat awake, trembling, listening for every sound, I realized something: the knock never really stopped. It still hasn't. If you ever hear knocking at your door when you're home alone, don't answer. Because sometimes, it isn't someone trying to get in. Sometimes, they're already there. If this story sent chills down your spine, subscribe for more. Just remember, when the next knock comes, you'll never know if it's the story, or if it's for you. Story 2. The last light on. They say darkness is terrifying, but sometimes, the light is worse. It started on an ordinary Sunday night. My family had gone to visit relatives, and I stayed home to finish homework. The house was silent, the kind of silence that feels thick, pressing against your ears. Outside, the neighborhood was calm. Street lights glowed like pale moons, one after another, except the one across the street. That light was always broken. I remember staring at it while brushing my teeth, thinking how strange it looked. A single patch of darkness among rows of steady light. I laughed at myself getting spooked over nothing. But that night, at 11:47 p.m. the broken street light flickered on. I froze at the bathroom window. The bulb buzzed faintly, humming alive after months of silence. and beneath it, someone stood. Not moving. Not walking. Just standing in the glow, staring at my house. I closed the curtain fast, hard hammering. It could be a neighbor. A late night walker. Nothing strange. But something inside me whispered, "Don't look again." I ignored it. Pulled the curtain an inch. The figure was closer. Still. Silent. The face hidden in the glow, head tilted slightly, like they were studying me. I slammed the curtain shut, ran to my room, locked the door. My phone shook in my hands as I tried to call my parents. No signal. The bars flickered in and out like static. And then the hallway light turned on. Click. Soft footsteps followed. I held my breath, pressing my ear to the door. The creak of the wooden floor. Slow, careful. Someone was inside. I grabbed the baseball bat under my bed. My room light flickered. Once.